It begins not with rage or blood, but with curiosity. A single thought, a quiet question that should never have existed. Something small, harmless, like a spark inside the dark. You try to ignore it at first. You tell yourself it's nothing, a stray idea, a wandering impulse. But it lingers. It breathes. It speaks. A whisper, so soft it sounds like your own mind, calls you by name. Not aloud, but beneath your thoughts. It tells you things no one should know, secrets about the past, fragments of futures that have not yet come. You listen, just once, and that is enough. Because in that moment, the instant you wonder why you heard it, or what it wants, it knows you. Your mind becomes a door you didn't realize you'd opened. And something steps through. You begin to see patterns where none should exist. The random becomes meaningful. The meaningless becomes prophecy. Every word, every glance, every coincidence starts to feel like a message. The world itself seems to shift, ever so slightly, like a painting that moves when you're not looking. Colors deepen, shadows watch. Your reflection blinks a heartbeat too late. And then it laughs. Not cruelly, but knowingly. As though it has been waiting for this exact moment. As though this has happened before. And you remember the whisper. It is not a voice at all. It is an idea, patient, eternal, seductive. It doesn't demand obedience. It simply asks questions. Questions that open doors. Doors that never close. Because it begins not with war, or power, or madness. It begins with curiosity. And the moment you ask why, you've already been seen. You've already been chosen. You've already begun to change. But what if the voice in your mind isn't yours? They call him by many names. And yet, even as they speak them, he is already changing. The architect of fate, the great conspirator, the changer of ways, the lord of change, the great sorcerer. Each name is a mirror shard, reflecting only a fragment of the being behind the veil. But Tzeentch has no true name. For names are anchors, and he is the current that erases them. The first time you hear his name, it does not reach your ears, it blooms in your thoughts. A pattern you can't unsee. A whisper that rearranges your memories so that you think you've always known it. And perhaps you have. For Tzeentch is older than words, older than lies, older even than time. He is the moment of doubt between decision and action, the tremor in the hand before the blade falls, the shifting of meaning between truth and deceit. He is change itself will made mutable. He is the reason plans crumble, and the reason they rise anew. The universe breathes in chaos, but its rhythm, its design, its endless evolution, that is his laughter. Across the galaxy, they chant his titles like equations of worship, architect of fate. Because every action, every rebellion, every death, every whispered thought of betrayal was already written in his design. Every event in history, from the fall of Prospero to the birth of new stars, turns within his spiraled scheme. Even your disbelief right now, yes, even that has already been accounted for. He is called the changer of ways, for his essence is the rearrangement of what is fixed. Where there is stagnation, he breathes movement. Where there is despair, he sows ambition. Where there is certainty, he injects doubt. He changes others, but he also changes himself, endlessly, beautifully, horrifically. No mortal mind can grasp him, for he is not a god as we understand the word. He is the principle of transformation given consciousness. They paint his banners in shifting blues, golds, and iridescent fire, colors that refuse to remain still. They shimmer like liquid thought, refracting in 1,000 patterns that never repeat. And on those banners burns his mark, the burning eye, gazing ever outward and inward still. His sacred number is 9, the symbol of eternity, twisted upon itself. 9 layers of meaning in every spell. 9 paths through his labyrinthine realm. 9 circles of deceit before one may glimpse the truth, and by then, truth no longer exists. For Tzeentch, truth is not a destination, it is a maze. His realm mirrors this nature, the crystal labyrinth, a dimension where geometry itself rebels. Walls are thoughts, and corridors are choices. The floor shifts, like liquid glass, reflecting countless futures at once. Every door opens to another possibility, and every possibility leads deeper into him, At its heart stands the impossible fortress, the throne and prison of Tzeentch himself. It defies reality. It is endless and yet contained, transparent yet opaque, silent yet screaming with a million voices of all who sought to understand it. From its windows, he watches every thread of fate, threads that shimmer like starlight, stretching across time and space. Every life, every decision, every drop of blood spilled in ambition is a thread in his tapestry. And he weaves them not for order, but for movement. The warp itself bends to his curiosity, for in that sea of madness, he is the only thing that learns. And every spell ever cast, every prophecy ever spoken, every secret ever whispered in the dark, all flow to him like tributaries of knowledge, feeding an ocean of shifting meaning. To Tzeentch, knowledge is not power. Knowledge is transformation. Every truth learned reshapes the learner. Every revelation demands a sacrifice not in blood, but in certainty. Those who follow him do not find answers. They find questions that devour them whole. And yet, mortals cannot help themselves. The scribe who seeks forbidden texts, the psyker who chases perfection, the politician who plots just one more betrayal, they all serve him, knowingly or not. For every act of ambition, every dream of improvement, every spark of curiosity feeds the great sorcerer. The Thousand Sons Legion are his masterpiece. Once the most learned and disciplined of the Emperor's sons, now they are walking libraries of dust, shells of armor, animated by will alone. Their Primarch, Magnus the Red, once sought knowledge to save his kin, and in doing so, became the instrument of their doom. His legions cursed the rubric of Arum and turned them to dust, an eternal lesson. For those who seek to control the warp always claims control. Tzeentch despises stagnation, and so, he despises Nurgle's rot, Khorne's brute simplicity, and Slaaneish's self-obsession. But he uses them as tools, as balance. For every war between gods, every alliance of convenience, every betrayal that follows it, all adds depth to his grand experiment. They call him the Great Conspirator because he never stops planning. Every event, every betrayal, every act of defiance he foresaw, designed, or allowed. He weaves contradictions like a spider spins silk, patient, intricate, eternal. His plans stretch across eons, not for victory, but for amusement, for evolution, for the art of change itself. And those who think they have outwitted him have already played their part. Tzeentch's greatest weapon is not sorcery. It is hope. Hope that you can rise, improve, escape. Because every time you reach upward, you twist the web tighter around yourself. His daemons embody this deceit. Horrors split and multiply when slain, each fragment mocking your effort to destroy them. Flamers laugh as they spew living fire that sings and mocks your screams. Lords of Change, his avian arch-sorcerers, debate philosophy even as they tear reality apart with talons of warp light. They do not obey, they interpret, and even their obedience is rebellion. Tzeentch does not demand worship. He does not crave blood or prayer. He wants you to think, to wonder, to question until you unravel. For every question is a door, and every door opens into him. And so, mortal, when you dream of more, when you ache to change your fate, when you whisper to yourself that you are meant for greater things, know this: you are not speaking to yourself. You are speaking to him. You always were. Because Tzeentch is not simply a god. He is the whisper of progress, the fire of revolution, the hunger for power, the curiosity that kills and resurrects. And when you hear that quiet voice in your head say, "You could be more," that is not you thinking. That is him smiling. So ask yourself, mortal, can you trust a god who rewrites his own name? Or worse, can you trust yourself once you've learned his? How long before you realize the dream never ended? You dream of colors that have no names, shades that twist in upon themselves, hues your waking mind insists cannot exist. They pulse behind your eyelids like living thoughts, burning with impossible geometry. You cannot tell if you are seeing light or feeling it crawl beneath your skin. The dream begins as a whisper, soft, almost kind. It doesn't speak in words but in intentions, ripples of meaning that bloom in your mind like ink spreading through water. You try to focus, to understand, but comprehension slips from your grasp. It is not meant for mortals to understand. Then the vision expands. You see 1,000 futures spiraling outward, colliding and folding into one another. Cities rise, burn, rebuild, and rise again in each version, the same faces, the same mistakes, reshaped endlessly like clay under unseen hands. Some futures glimmer with hope, others scream with despair. But all of them end in the same echo laughter, a laughter so vast it seems to fill the galaxy itself. You feel the dream watching you. It has eyes not one, but many, and each reflects a different version of you. One kneels in prayer, another burns worlds, another hides from the truth, and one stares back at you in silent recognition. You realize with a shiver that in every version you are still dreaming. This is the first dream, the moment of awakening that is not awakening at all. It is Tzeentch's touch upon the soul, the seed of curiosity. He plants in those who will one day serve him willingly or not. It is how he calls you, not through command or force, but through wonder. The first dream is never random. It comes to those who question the pattern of their lives, the scholar who doubts the scriptures, the psyker who feels whispers beneath his thoughts, the soldier who wonders why his victories feel like losses. They are all chosen, not because they are strong, but because they doubt. Doubt is the gateway. In the dream, you witness the flow of the warp as if time itself were liquid. You see stars as mere embers drifting on its surface, planets spinning like reflections on deep water. The Imperium swirls beneath everything, reality's hidden heartbeat, and Tzeentch moves through it like a current, reshaping meaning itself. Every choice, every regret, every possibility is a thread he plucks and rewrites. When you awaken, the air feels wrong. Walls breathe, shadows ripple, voices hum beneath silence, just below the edge of hearing. You look at your hands and see faint trails of blue light running beneath your skin, veins of sorcery that vanish when you blink. You tell yourself it was a dream, but deep down, you know better. Because everything feels slightly displaced. The world has tilted a fraction to the left. You begin to notice things, patterns, coincidences. Someone finishes your sentence before you speak. A candle flickers in time with your heartbeat. Books open to pages you didn't remember touching. And sometimes, for just a breath, your reflection in glass smiles before you do. These are the signs, the after-images of the first dream. They mean the veil has thinned. You are no longer entirely of the material world. You are being watched, measured, rewritten. Most mortals dismiss the dream as madness. But the truth is far more dangerous. The dream is realer than reality. It is the moment your mind first touches the warp, the infinite sea of potential that lies behind existence. Every mind that questions, every soul that seeks meaning, dips a toe into that sea. And when the ripple reaches Tzeentch, he answers. Those who answer back begin to change. Their eyes see what others cannot, the flux behind form, the truth behind the lie. They start to speak words that don't belong to any language, yet make perfect sense. They begin to draw symbols in dust and blood without knowing why. And at night, they dream again, always of color, fire, and the sound of wings. That is how he begins his work, not with thunder, but with curiosity. He does not demand faith, he feeds on it. Each question you ask opens a door. Each truth you uncover leads to 9 more. And behind every answer waits his gaze, patient and amused. The first dream is not the start of corruption, it is the start of understanding. You begin to see that everything, every law, every faith, every constant, is only a suggestion. You realize reality is fragile, mutable, and pliable to those who dare to think differently. And so you think. You question, and as you do, the dream grows stronger. Eventually, the difference between sleeping and waking dissolves. You walk through the world as if half submerged in that sea of possibility. Every face seems layered with unseen versions of itself. Every moment feels like one among thousands you have already lived. Until one day, you stop asking which one is real, because you finally understand, they all are. The dream never ended. It simply changed shape, as all things do under Tzeentch's gaze. And if you listen carefully, you will hear his laughter again, the sound of destiny being rewritten, not by gods, but by you. For that is the final secret of the first dream. Tzeentch does not show you your future, he shows you the moment you start creating it. And by then, mortal, you are already his. When even your flesh lies to you, what remains of truth? It begins as an itch, a faint tingling beneath the skin, like the aftertaste of lightning. You think it's nothing, fatigue, perhaps, or fever. But then you see it. The shimmer beneath your flesh. The slow crawl of color that should not exist. You blink, and for a moment, your arm ripples as if reality itself hesitates around you. The change is never sudden. It unfolds in whispers. First, the eyes. They see too much. You begin to notice details you were never meant to. The heartbeat of walls, the pulse of shadows, the hidden geometry behind movement. Every pattern hums with purpose. Every breath feels designed. Soon your reflection starts lagging behind, then getting ahead. It smirks before you do. You tell yourself it's a trick of light, but the lie cracks when it speaks back. The mark of change is not a wound or a symbol carved by mortal hands. It is an awakening, a rewriting of your existence. Tzeentch does not brand his chosen, he reshapes them. The body becomes parchment, the soul becomes ink, and the architect of fate writes his scripture in flesh and thought. Some see it as blessing, others as curse. Both are right, for those touched by Tzeentch are never truly themselves again. Their forms flicker between what was, what is, and what could be. One moment, they are human, the next, something far older, older than sanity itself. Look closely at the servants of the great conspirator. Their skin moves like mercury beneath candlelight. Runes form and dissolve with every heartbeat. Faces melt into new expressions mid-conversation. Their laughter carries multiple voices, some childlike, others ancient, all whispering the same truth. Change is the only constant. The mark manifests differently for each disciple. For the sorcerer, it might be the flicker of blue flame in their veins. For the scholar, the words they write rearrange themselves when they aren't looking. For the zealot, their prayers echo back from the warp, but altered, rewritten, as if Tzeentch himself edits their faith. There are records forbidden, ancient, of those who bore the mark too long. They say their bodies became translucent, filled with shifting stars. Their voices fractured into chords of sound that bent air and glass. Their minds expanded beyond flesh until they could no longer distinguish their thoughts from Tzeentch's will. These are the blessed mad, the ones who ascend not through death, but through metamorphosis. Do not mistake it for possession. Possession implies an intruder. But this is evolution. The changer of ways does not invade, he invites. You accept his influence, little by little, every time you wish things were different. Every time you whisper, if only, a thread of yourself unravels into his web. Desire is the door, and curiosity the key. There comes a day when you catch your reflection staring not back, but through you. Its eyes are no longer yours. They are ancient, burning with impossible awareness. And for an instant, you feel your body as a fragile costume, temporary, malleable, irrelevant. You could change everything, you realize. The laws of flesh, gravity, truth, all pliable, all weak. And in that moment, you understand Tzeentch's gospel. Reality is only as real as your will to believe it. But such knowledge has a price. For once the mark takes hold, it does not fade. Your memories shift. Your past rewrites itself in dreams. You begin to recall things you never did, lives you never lived, until you can no longer tell which of you is true. Your laughter sounds different each day. You forget what your original voice was. And yet, you wouldn't trade it back. Because behind the terror lies beauty, the beauty of freedom. To be mutable is to be limitless. To shed identity is to escape the prison of form. That is the gift of Tzeentch, the liberation from definition. To be many things, and none at all. To be eternal motion, thought made flesh. Scholars in the Imperium whisper that those marked by Tzeentch can rewrite fate itself, that a single drop of their blood can turn prophecy to ash. They say their presence distorts probability, bullets curve, lies become truths, and destinies collapse into absurdity. To fight such a being is to battle possibility itself. You cannot predict what they will become because they themselves do not know. And so, the mark of change is both creation and annihilation. It is the undoing of certainty, the death of stability, the awakening of infinite potential. When you bear it, you cease to be, you begin to become, again and again, forever. But ask yourself this, when even your flesh lies to you, when your thoughts rewrite themselves in whispers of blue flame. What remains of truth? Perhaps nothing, perhaps everything. For truth itself is just another form waiting to change. And Tzeentch smiles, for in that moment, you finally understand what it means to exist. How do you stop seeking when curiosity itself is the trap? It begins, as all corruption does, with a question. Not an act of malice, not a thirst for power. Just a question, quiet, harmless, beautiful. Why? Why do stars burn? Why do souls dream? Why do gods whisper only when you're alone? And in that moment of wonder, something ancient stirs. A ripple through the warp, a flicker in your thoughts. You've caught his attention. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, listens. He loves questions more than prayers, because prayers end, questions never do. The first gift comes softly, a pattern you shouldn't have noticed, a symmetry in coincidence, a rhythm in chaos, a dream that feels more like memory. The answer unfolds like silk, gleaming with elegance and terror. You feel enlightened, you feel chosen, and you are. But enlightenment, like hunger, does not stop once fed. You begin to see the threads, not metaphorical ones, real, luminous threads that tie everything to everything else. A word spoken in one world births a storm in another. A single death echoes backward through time. Every heartbeat, every lie, every miracle connected, tangled, deliberate. You trace the design, and for the first time, you glimpse the face of truth. It smiles back. Knowledge is not power, it is weight, and once you start carrying it, you never put it down again. The gift of knowledge is not revelation, it is infection. Your thoughts multiply like cells, dividing and mutating, growing more intricate by the hour. You can no longer think one thing at a time. Your mind blooms into thousands of parallel thoughts, each building, questioning, contradicting the other. You start to see what cannot be unseen. The patterns in madness, the order in decay, the beauty in entropy. Every revelation opens a door. Every door leads to 9 more. And behind each, something watches, patient, curious, amused. Those who walk this path long enough begin to lose the ability to stop. Their hunger for understanding devours the very self that seeks it. Scholars become zealots. Zealots become conduits. Their eyes no longer blink, for they fear to miss the next truth that might flicker through existence. You'll find them sometimes muttering to walls, writing with their own blood, tracing sigils that move when no one's looking. They whisper of the grand equation, of the hidden script, of the answer that changes itself. They say knowledge is light, but Tzeentch teaches that light burns. Too much, and you stop seeing the world. You start seeing through it. Those who receive the full gift of knowledge often go mad, but not all madness is equal. Some become prophets, their minds fracturing into infinite insight. They speak in riddles that reshape the listener's fate. Others simply dissolve their bodies, collapsing into mist, their final thought echoing through time like a whisper from the warp. I understand now. Do you know what makes Tzeentch's followers so devoted? It's not fear, it's not power, it's the thrill of almost understanding, the exquisite torture of being forever one question away from truth. Because once you've glimpsed the structure behind reality, you can never return to ignorance. You can never unknow. The Lord of Change does not hoard wisdom. He scatters it like seeds, watching which minds bloom and which ones break. Every fact is a thread, every theory a snare. The closer you draw the map, the more you realize the map is mapping you. This is how Tzeentch feeds, not on blood, but on curiosity. Not on faith, but on wonder. He waits in the space between understanding and madness, where revelation feels like worship. And when you reach the end of your studies, when your mind is overflowing with truths that rewrite themselves faster than you can think, you'll finally ask the last, inevitable question. What does Tzeentch want? And he will answer. He always answers. But by the time you comprehend it, you'll realize that he never spoke at all. You did. You were the question. You were the answer. You were the experiment. The gift of knowledge was never meant to enlighten you. It was meant to change you. So, how do you stop seeking when curiosity itself is the trap? You don't. You can't. You were never meant to. Because curiosity is the leash, and Tzeentch holds the other end. When power obeys thought, Who commands whom? It begins with trembling hands. You think it's fear or awe, but no. It's the body realizing it has become a conduit for something it cannot contain. Your veins hum like struck wires. The air tastes of ozone and whispers. You raise your hand, not in faith, not in hope, but in command. And the universe listens. Reality bends. Color fractures. Fire spills from your fingers, not red, not blue, but the hue of madness made visible. You feel it stretch inside you, a beast of raw thought, coiling beneath your skin. Every nerve burns, every idea ignites. You're not casting a spell, you're tearing a hole. Welcome to the art of sorcery. Mortals call it magic, fools call it a gift, but those who truly understand know the word for it: debt. Every flicker of power comes from somewhere. Every spark has a cost, and the debt is always paid in blood, sanity, or soul. When you command the warp, you are not shaping it, you are negotiating with it. You offer a thought, it offers form. You imagine fire, and fire is born. You dream of wings, and flesh twists to obey. You think you are in control, but the warp listens too closely. At first, it feels divine. You summon storms that sing. You carve your name into lightning. You write destiny in the sky. And for a fleeting moment, when reality kneels to your will, Tzeentch laughs, because that is the lie. Power is not obedience. Power is infection. Each time you wield it, a little more of it wields you. Your voice starts to echo with two tones, one yours, one ancient. Your reflection moves before you do. You speak a word of command, and the word replies. Soon the flame no longer waits for your order. It anticipates. It suggests. It hungers. This is sorcery, not mastery, but surrender. You open yourself to the warp, and the warp opens something within you. The wall between thought and reality thins. Dreams leak into waking life. Fear becomes flesh. Desire becomes command. Anger becomes creation. And in quiet moments, you wonder whose thoughts are these really? Did you call the fire? Or did the fire call you? Each spell leaves a fingerprint on your soul. The more you twist reality, the less of it remembers your name. You begin to see differently, not through eyes, but through will. You perceive the lattice beneath existence, the web of cause and consequence. You pluck one thread, and 9 others tremble in answer. You reach for control, and Tzeentch tightens his grasp. Some call this ascension, others call it possession. But to the changer of ways, it is simply evolution. The warp rewards imagination and punishes restraint. Its artists are painted in their own power. Hands become claws of light. Voices fracture into a choir. Flesh becomes message. Mind becomes instrument. The sorcerer's hand is miracle and curse entwined. It gives mortals the illusion of godhood and seals their damnation. For when reality itself bends to your thought, you forget the one truth. The will you believe is yours has already been rewritten. And when the final spell burns through you, when the fire forms your reflection, you will understand. The hand that shapes, the voice that commands, the thought that wills. None of it was ever yours. You were never the master. You were the spell, the living incantation of Tzeentch's amusement. And when he closes his fist, the magic doesn't fade. You do. If every face you wear is false, what does your true one look like? It begins with whispers that don't echo. You're alone yet not. The air feels heavy, like something unseen is leaning close. You think it's imagination. It isn't. It's awareness, your own thoughts, waking up and speaking back. At first, it's a comfort, a small voice that knows your secrets and answers before you ask. You think you've summoned a familiar, a servant of will and intellect, shaped from the warp to obey. But in truth, it's your reflection turned inward, a fragment of your soul given form, torn loose by the touch of Tzeentch. You give it feathers of thought, bones of memory, eyes that glow with your own ambition. It perches at your shoulder, a raven, a serpent, a fluttering mote of flame, ever changing, ever watching. It learns your voice, your habits, your fears, and one day, it begins to finish your sentences. That's when you realize, you didn't create it, you revealed it. Every sorcerer of Tzeentch carries such a companion, though few dare to call it by name. Some whisper that these familiars are splinters of the Lord of Change himself, little fragments of divinity sent to guide and tempt. Others insist they're shards of one's own mind, thoughts exiled from the body, circling like vultures around what's left of the soul. And yet, you cannot destroy it. Because when it looks at you, it knows things. Secrets you never spoke, truths you never faced. It can recite your dreams in reverse. It can tell you how many lies you've told since midnight. It laughs when you try to ignore it, so you hide instead. You craft masks, beautiful, intricate, deceptive. One for the cult, one for the court, one for the mirror. You change them as easily as breath, shifting your face to match the lies you need. Each mask protects you from those who would see the truth beneath. But every time you put one on, it fuses a little tighter. And soon, you forget which one was first. You wake one morning, and the familiar is wearing your voice. Your reflection smiles before you do. Your hand moves, but it's uncertain whose will drives it. You've become a collection of masks, layered over something that might not even exist anymore. Tzeentch adores this. He delights in the moment you realize that the mask is no longer a disguise, it's your face. That the familiar you shaped from thought now shapes your thoughts in return. That every identity you've worn was just rehearsal for the final one, the mask of faith. Because faith in Tzeentch is not belief. It's surrender to contradiction. You worship the God who changes his name every hour. You pray to lies, knowing they might be truer than truth. And as your familiar laughs softly in your voice, you begin to understand. You were never meant to find your true face. You were meant to lose it. And when the time comes, when Tzeentch reaches through the warp to collect his due, he won't take your soul, he'll take your identity. Every mask, every face, every version of you will flutter apart like ashes in a cosmic wind. Only the familiar will remain smiling with your voice. And it will whisper to the next dreamer who dares to seek knowledge. I once wore your face. What if every prophecy you ever trusted was written by the one who meant to destroy you? They were scholars, not monsters. Builders of knowledge, not empires. The 1,000 Sons, the most gifted of all the legions of the Emperor, led by a Primarch whose mind shone brighter than stars. Magnus the Red, he sought truth, not glory, not war. Only understanding. But in a universe ruled by ignorance and fear, that is the greatest heresy of all. When Magnus reached into the warp to learn its secrets, he didn't find wisdom. He found someone waiting, a whisper that called itself friend. A God who promised answers to every question, mastery over every mystery. And so the bargain was made not in blood, but in curiosity. Tzeentch's influence seeped into every page of the 1,000 Sons libraries. Every experiment, every spell, every vision of the future, all part of a design older than reason itself. Magnus believed he could control the warp, that his intellect could shield him from corruption. But knowledge, under Tzeentch, is never a gift. It is a mirror, and every reflection is a distortion. When the Horus heresy began, Magnus tried to warn the Emperor to save his father, to save humanity itself. But he used sorcery to send his message. And the act shattered the Emperor's webway gate. The greatest mind in the Imperium had become its undoing, exactly as Tzeentch had foreseen. The punishment was swift. The space wolves fell upon Prospero. The libraries burned, the towers fell. And as Magnus watched his sons die, his soul broke, and in that breaking, the whisper returned. Tzeentch offered salvation, power enough to save his legion, and Magnus accepted. But salvation from Tzeentch is not deliverance, it is mutation. The 1,000 Sons were remade not in body, but in essence. Their flesh turned to dust, sealed within armor that no longer aged, no longer breathed. Their souls burned forever, bound to the warp like pages in a book written in pain. Only the sorcerers remained whole, those who could wield the warp without being consumed by it. They became the rubric marines, immortal shells filled with silent rage, serving a master who had already betrayed them. And Magnus, once the seeker of truth, became a daemon primarch, chained to Tzeentch's design. His brilliance turned into servitude. He still believes he understands his god. But no one understands Tzeentch, not even Tzeentch himself. For the changer of ways doesn't deal in victory or loss. He deals in movement, in the endless turning of the wheel. The 1,000 Sons did not fall because they were evil. They fell because they thought they could outthink the spiral. And so, Even now, they wander the stars, red-armored ghosts of wisdom, trapped in a cycle they cannot see, serving the will of the god who promised them freedom through knowledge. The greatest irony of all? They were right. Knowledge is power. But under Tzeentch, power is only another word for enslavement. It begins with light. Not sunlight, not firelight, something older, colder, infinitely layered. A shimmer that cuts across your vision like a thought you can't unthink. You take a step, and the ground beneath you shifts, not breaking, not collapsing, but rearranging itself around the idea of movement. The floor is glass, or maybe water, or maybe it's your reflection stretched across infinity. Everywhere you look, there are towers, vast crystalline spires that rise and fall like lungs breathing. Their shapes are impossible. Angles fold back on themselves. Stairways ascend in spirals that return to their own beginning, and doorways open into memories you've never lived. You've entered the realm of Tzeentch, the impossible palace, where thought, dream, and geometry are one. Here, the air itself feels alive with intention. You can hear thinking, a whispering, clicking rhythm like pages turning in a library that never ends. The sky changes color every few seconds, each hue carrying its own emotion, anxiety, curiosity, revelation, despair. Each color seems to speak a word, and together they form sentences that sound like your own inner voice. You walk through corridors made of stained glass, depicting scenes of your past, except they're wrong. Your childhood home stands in ruins. Your friends are strangers. You see yourself kneeling before something vast and radiant, and the glass smiles back. You tell yourself it's illusion, a trick of the warp. But somewhere, deep inside, you feel the tremor of recognition. This is not deception. This is memory waiting to happen. Every step forward leads sideways. Every door opens behind you. Every reflection argues with your thoughts. The palace tests you not with strength, but with understanding. It reshapes itself around your intellect, matching every answer with a harder question, every certainty with a greater paradox. You see rivers of liquid thought flowing uphill, cascading into pools of pure willpower. You see daemons of light and parchment, scrawling runes in the air that unravel into living serpents of ink. Somewhere in the shifting distance, laughter echoes, not cruel, not kind, but knowing. Tzeentch doesn't mock you, he invites you. The palace is a maze not meant to imprison, but to refine. Every realization burns away the parts of you that resist change, until you no longer know where the palace ends and where you begin. The trick is simple. There is no exit. Every path leads back to yourself, because you are the labyrinth. Every choice, every regret, every secret wish becomes another corridor, another locked door, another reflection whispering your name. And when you finally reach what you think is the center, when you stand before the largest gate of all, shimmering with every color of existence, you realize something chilling. The palace was never outside you. It was inside your mind all along. The gate opens. Light floods through, not warm, not cold, just inevitable. Your body dissolves into that brilliance, and for one heartbeat, you understand everything. Every lie, every truth, every possibility. Then the light contracts, focused, solidifying, and before you stands something far greater. You have reached the threshold. You have entered the impossible fortress. If the palace was your mind unraveling, the fortress is creation itself folding inward. At the heart of the realm of Tzeentch lies a citadel that cannot be mapped, built from crystal, thought, and contradiction. You stand before it, the sanctum sanctorum of Tzeentch, the impossible fortress. To call it a fortress is to lie, though every truth about it begins with a lie. It is not built, not placed, not even real in any way mortals understand. It simply is a thought so immense, so layered, that it gained structure through belief alone. From afar, it appears crystalline, a citadel carved from light itself, refracting colors that have no names. But approach, and its shape fractures, towers folding inward, bridges dissolving into smoke, gates opening into time. Each spire moves like a living limb of the god it houses. The walls hum not from wind, but from the dreams of those who have stood here before you. Inside, gravity bends under philosophy. Corridors loop into themselves, staircases climb into concept, and doorways open, not to rooms, but to ideas. Each chamber holds its own logic. In one, words hang frozen in the air like icicles, melting into whispers when you breathe upon them. In another, flame burns downward, devouring shadow instead of light. Somewhere deep within, voices echo scholars, prophets, daemons, each claiming to have glimpsed truth before they were unmade. Bok Samael, the lunatic scrivener of Hamclov Prime, wrote that he saw the fortress as a leafless tree upon a hill beneath a black Sunday. He claimed its roots were human veins, its fruit burning books that whispered secrets when eaten. He was found months later, blind and smiling, his tongue covered in ink that spelled the word, remember. The heretic de Lassa Dial of Phelan 10 described it differently, a desert of glass populated by headless men who endlessly split and merged, chanting names that no longer belonged to them. When she painted her vision, the pigments changed nightly until she was executed for painting colors that did not exist. Others, nameless, voiceless, saw the fortress as a storm trapped inside a cathedral, its lightning spelling equations of destiny across its vaulted ceiling. All accounts contradict each other, yet each is true, for the fortress changes to mirror the mind that beholds it. To a believer, it is a temple of light. To a skeptic, it is a prison of mirrors. To a sorcerer, it is the blueprint of all magic ever dreamed. And to the damned, it is home. Within its heart lies the hidden library, the brain of the god, the archive of all that was, is, and may yet be. Its halls are endless, curving like serpents of crystal, stacked with tomes bound in the flesh of ideas long forgotten. Here, knowledge breathes. Scrolls whisper to each other in dialects of fire and thought. Some rewrite themselves mid-sentence, others sigh, awaiting readers that will never be born. The air smells of ozone, parchment, and despair. Every book hungers to be read, and every reader is devoured by what they learn. The horrors that serve as librarians shuffle through the aisles, warped creatures of paper and ink, their eyes shaped like quills, their fingers smoldering with blue flame. They debate with one another, correcting, mocking, contradicting, each a fragment of Tzeentch's mind, arguing with itself. If you listen closely, you'll hear them reciting the fates of those who dared to enter before you. The names repeat in loops, changing slightly each time until one of them becomes your own. Somewhere deeper still, beyond the screaming shelves and shifting stairways, the throne awaits. It is said to be carved from the bones of unrealized worlds, each one a failed experiment in creation. The surface ripples with written light words too heavy for existence, letters burning with the weight of potential. Every line is a destiny, every syllable, our universe, every word, a weapon. And on that throne, or perhaps as that throne, sits Tzeentch, the great conspirator, the architect of fate. To look upon him is to see motion given mind. He is 1,000 colors in flux, 1,000 faces speaking at once. Feathers of glass shimmer upon flesh that might be smoke, might be thought, might be you. He watches you through every reflection, every page, every whisper in the library. He does not speak, for his every silence is already a command. This is the final revelation. The fortress is not Tzeentch's dwelling. It is Tzeentch himself, his mind given architecture, his thoughts given labyrinth, his curiosity made matter. Every wall, every book, every stair is part of his infinite being. When you enter, you are not a visitor, you are an ingredient. And as you walk deeper, you begin to fade, not vanish, but dissolve into purpose. Your thoughts become hallways, your memories become ink. Your questions, oh, those precious questions, become the next doorway for another to find. The horrors will catalog you soon enough. They will whisper your name in 9 variations, each truer than the last, until only the fortress remembers who you were. And when the next seeker arrives, guided by curiosity and arrogance, they will open a book, your book, and the cycle will begin anew. For here, in the impossible fortress, knowledge is eternal, and those who seek it never truly leave. You have not found the god. You have become part of his dream. And dreams, in the realm of the sorcerer, never end. If every thought can dream itself alive, what happens when the dream starts thinking back? They say that no mortal has ever seen all of Tzeentch. They are wrong. Every mortal who has ever imagined something, a spell, a hope, a lie, has seen a fragment of him. And every fragment, when it dreams deeply enough, becomes alive. That is how his daemons are born. They are not servants in the way of soldiers or slaves. They are thoughts given flesh, ideas that learn to scream, each one a reflection of the architect's shifting moods: curiosity, mockery, fury, delight, given impossible anatomy. To call them monsters is to simplify a truth that was never meant to be simple. They are the vocabulary of his will, the alphabet of chaos written across the veil of reality. Every time Tzeentch thinks, something somewhere is born wrong. The first to appear are the horrors. They are Tzeentch's giggle at the universe, bright, shrieking, infantile, and utterly deranged. Pink horrors caper into being like sparks from a burning thought, their bodies stretching, bubbling, reforming mid-motion. They dance as they kill, their laughter louder than their victims' screams. Each one is a paradox, part sorcerer, part fool, part painter of madness. When struck down, they do not die, they divide. Two smaller horrors burst from the corpse, their color darkened to blue, their voices shriller, their joy more violent. Kill those, and from the remains crawl the smallest of all brimstone horrors, tiny embers of malice that bite and burn and mock their slayers even as they fade. Death is merely division. Pain is reproduction. In their laughter echoes a truth. Tzeentch's ideas can never be silenced, only multiplied. Where horrors laugh, flamers sing. They are the fire of revelation the moment an idea catches light and consumes the thinker. Each flamer's body writhes like molten glass, mouths opening and closing across its surface, belching warp fire that burns the soul rather than the flesh. The flames of Tzeentch do not merely destroy, they transform. A tree set alight by a flamer may become a column of screaming eyes. A man touched by it may bloom into wings and melt into the air. To be burned by the fire of change is not to perish, it is to be rewritten. They move like music, a perverse rhythm of heat and laughter, graceful in their horror. And yet, behind that beauty, lies cruelty. Each flamer knows exactly what it is doing when it reshapes life. They call it the gift. Then come the screamers, manta-like shapes slicing through the air, like thoughts through silence. They are hunger given direction, instinct given edge. Their shriek is not sound, it is the tearing of reality's fabric as they pass. They feed on motion, on the energy of pursuit, on the thrill of the chase. To stand still is to confuse them. To run is to die screaming. They are the wings of Tzeentch's wrath, the predators of the impossible. Those who have faced them say the air smells of blood and ozone before they strike, and that when they pass overhead, the world below flickers as if reality itself flinched. The discs of Tzeentch are creatures of paradox, neither mount nor weapon, but something in between. Forged of psychic metal and living thought, they whirl through the sky like spinning sigils, carrying sorcerers into war. To ride one is to surrender to its will, to let it move you where it wishes. Those who try to command it find themselves laughing uncontrollably as their flesh begins to spiral and their bones twist into strange geometries. And then there are the burning chariots, entire platforms of fire pulled by chained screamers, ridden by flamers who scream hymns of entropy. When they cross the battlefield, the horizon itself seems to melt, and mortals fall to their knees, mistaking the sight for the arrival of a new Sunday. Every legion of the Changer is led by heralds, daemons of greater cunning and intellect than their kin. Each herald is a living spell, a sermon wrapped in feathers and tongues. They are the orators of chaos, commanding lesser daemons not through authority but through inspiration. Their words are not heard, they are felt. A herald's speech can change the color of the sky or turn courage into madness. When they point, mortals obey, not because they wish to, but because reality itself decides to agree with them. Above them all soar the lords of change. Vast, avian, regal like the nightmares of angels. Their wings are veined with galaxies, their feathers whisper prophecies as they fall. Each one is both priest and predator, a being of immense sorcerous power and cunning intellect. They see time not as a line but as a spiral, every moment touching every other. When a lord of change speaks, its words ripple through centuries, altering pasts and futures alike. They are not merely servants of Tzeentch, they are his thoughts, manifested on a scale so vast that they believe themselves independent. But even they are not immune to irony. For every scheme they weave, 9 more unravel behind them, each one part of a grander design only Tzeentch can see. They are his greatest creations and his most exquisite jokes. Among the Lords of Change, one stands apart. Kairos Fate Weaver, the two-headed oracle, the twin tongue of truth and lies. Once, he was the wisest of Tzeentch's kin, bold enough to peer into the well of eternity, a vortex of knowledge so deep that even gods fear its reflection. Tzeentch, amused, pushed him in. For 9 days and 9 nights, Kairos drowned in futures. When he crawled out, his mind was forever split in two, one head seeing all that will be, the other all that was. Between them lies the eternal blind spot of now. One head speaks only truth, the other only lies. Which is which changes every heartbeat. To hear both is to go mad. To understand them is to cease being mortal. Then there is Magnus, once a Primarch, now a god-made daemon. The Crimson King, the Red Cyclops, the architect of the Thousand Suns. He was not born a monster. He became one through tragedy, pride, and the whisper of a god who promised to protect his sons from the curse of mutation. That god was Tzeentch. Now Magnus stands as both servant and rival, his planet, the planet of the sorcerers, orbiting through the warp like a thought in the god's mind. He believes he still chooses his path. Tzeentch smiles, for even rebellion serves a purpose. And then there is the Changeling. No two stories agree on what it is. Some say it is Tzeentch's shadow. Others say it is his curiosity made flesh. It can take any form: man, beast, angel, even god, save one, Tzeentch himself. That limit, some say, is the only proof the great conspirator allows of his own identity. The Changeling has tricked daemons, primarchs, and even the other chaos gods. It once spent a century impersonating a custodes captain, and another century impersonating the man who executed him. Every lie it tells becomes true, for a while, and every truth it tells becomes the next lie. And so the scintillating legions march a carnival of mutation and madness. Flamers dance beside horrors, screamers spiral above, and Lords of Change conduct them like orchestras of entropy. Each army is a story, a living metaphor for the god they serve. Every battle they fight is a sermon, every victory a riddle. They do not conquer, they rearrange. They do not destroy, they rewrite. When they leave a world behind, it does not die. It dreams. Dreams of wings, of eyes, of colors that cannot be seen. Dreams of change. And so the daemons of Tzeentch march, laughing, burning, devouring, enlightening. Their chaos not an act of cruelty, but of creation. For in every scream, every flame, every mutation, there is a lesson, that nothing is fixed, nothing is final, and that even damnation, in its own way, is divine. If every god is a player, what happens when the board starts to think? There are wars that mortals cannot see. Wars not fought with blades, or fleets, or flame, but with intent. The great game is not a war for territory, it is a war for meaning. And in that endless conflict, Tzeentch is both the trickster and the architect, the gambler and the board itself. Every god of chaos plays, but none play like him. Imagine an ocean made not of water, but of thought. Every human fear, every alien hope, every dream ever dreamed, all churned together in a storm without beginning or end. That is the warp. It is not a place, but a feeling given depth. Not a realm, but an emotion made infinite. And within it, the four great powers of chaos move like continents of sentience, colliding, consuming, reshaping. Each god feeds on what mortals give. Khorne drinks their rage. Nurgle savors their despair. Slaanesh devours their pleasure. And Tzeentch feeds on possibility. Every time a mortal asks what if, a spark flickers in his realm. Every doubt, every scheme, every act of faith or betrayal becomes a thread he can weave into his tapestry. Where others feast on what is, Tzeentch dines on what might be. Khorne, the blood god, sees Tzeentch as cowardice incarnate. He despises the schemer's manipulation, his webs of lies and delay. Where Khorne acts, Tzeentch reacts. Where Khorne kills, Tzeentch transforms. And yet, it is Tzeentch who whispers into the minds of generals, convincing them to begin wars in the first place. Every drop of blood spilled in battle begins as a thought. Every rage needs a reason. Every slaughter has a seed, and Tzeentch plants it. Nurgle, the Plague Father, is Tzeentch's truest mirror, his perfect opposite. Tzeentch moves, Nurgle waits. Tzeentch schemes toward progress. Nurgle teaches acceptance, and yet, they are closer than they appear. When hope fails, Nurgle wins. When hope is reborn, Tzeentch rejoices. They orbit one another like twin diseases: change and stagnation, infection and recovery. Slaanesh, the prince of excess, dances on the knife edge between them all. Where Tzeentch whispers, Slaanesh seduces. Where Tzeentch craves change, Slaanesh craves perfection. But even perfection decays, and when it does, Tzeentch is already waiting, ready to turn that collapse into yet another step in the dance of destiny. He adores Slaanesh's chaos. The vanity, the obsession for every passion eventually leads to desire for control, and control is the first illusion he teaches to break. Tzeentch plays not with armies, but with ages. His strategies stretch across millennia, looping backward and forward through time like spirals of flame. He is the whisper that convinces an inquisitor to burn a planet, knowing that the ashes will one day nourish the soil of a world where his cult will bloom. He is the thought that makes a primarch question his father. He is the scientist who dreams of progress, the prophet who believes he speaks for God, the heretic who knows he does. To Tzeentch, victory is irrelevant. Movement is everything. The moment a plan ends, he begins another, because a world without conflict is a world without change, and a world without change cannot feed him. In the rare moments when chaos must unite, when reality itself trembles, and the warp spills into the stars, it is Tzeentch who binds them together. He is the diplomat of damnation, the spider who knows which web to pluck. During the Horus Heresy, when the Emperor's sons tore the galaxy apart, it was Tzeentch who whispered to Magnus the Red. He did not force the Primarch to act, he merely offered clarity. Magnus saw a vision of betrayal, sought to warn his father, and in doing so, doomed them both. That is how Tzeentch works. He never commands. He merely suggests. And suggestion, in the right ear, is prophecy. Even the other gods suspect him. Even they know he weaves their wars into his own designs. But suspicion itself is one of his greatest tools, because to suspect is to doubt, and to doubt is to feed him. There are no rules in the great game, only patterns that pretend to be rules. Tzeentch creates them, then breaks them, then rewrites them into new forms. He cheats by design, lies by instinct, and wins by losing. And yet, even he is bound by the paradox that defines him. If he ever truly won the great game, if he ever achieved perfect knowledge, perfect control, he would cease to be what he is. For the end of change is death, and so, he must never finish the game. He must keep playing, eternally curious, eternally deceitful, eternally becoming. There are whispers among the most ancient daemons that the great game was never meant for gods at all. That the warp itself invented them, shaping emotion into beings so that thought could study itself. If that is true, then Tzeentch is both the experiment and the scientist. He laughs because he knows the punchline. There is no player, no board, no game. There is only change, endlessly folding upon itself. And somewhere in that laughter, perhaps in your next idea, perhaps in the flicker of doubt in your heart, another thread is born. A new move begins. And once again Tzeentch whispers, "Your turn. Would you open the book if it promised to show you your future?" It always begins with a question, not a prayer, not a plea, a question. That is how Tzeentch enters the mortal mind, not through devotion, but through curiosity, the thirst to know, to understand, to peel back one more layer of the universe and see what lies beneath. At first, it feels harmless. A scholar unearths an ancient text in a library vault. A psyker hears a whisper when he reaches too deep into the warp. A scribe copies a symbol that seems to shimmer when no one's watching. And always, it begins the same way: a thought. What harm is there in knowing? But knowledge is the sweetest poison. And Tzeentch is the cupbearer. His mortal cults rarely march beneath banners or chant his name aloud. They hide in the machinery of empires, in the libraries, the universities, the research halls, the political courts. Wherever ambition and intelligence mingle, the changer of ways already waits. They call themselves Seekers, Illuminati, Truth Keepers, the Ninefold Path. Names change with every century, but the pattern never does. Each group believes they've uncovered a secret, the rest of humanity is too blind to see. Each believes they are chosen, guided by visions, coincidences, dreams that come true too often to ignore. They are all correct, and all wrong. Because Tzeentch does not choose, he inspires. He whispers ideas into the mind of a single heretic, and watches the infection spread through books, through whispers, through data streams and sub-networks, mutating like a meme that devours meaning itself. You won't find altars of bone or sacrifices of blood here. The cult of Tzeentch worships through thought. A ritual might look like an academic symposium, 9 scholars debating impossible geometry until one's mind collapses under revelation. It might look like a psyker meditating in front of a mirror, drawing sigils in the air until his reflection stops matching him. Or a heretic scribe, ink-stained and sleepless, tracing the same glyph for 9 nights until the parchment begins to whisper back. They call these acts rites of clarity. But clarity is an illusion. Each mirror is a gate. Each rune, a key. And every time they open a door, they let something look back. In the quiet halls of forbidden study, candles flicker with blue fire. Shadows shift where no wind blows. Books breathe. Pages turn themselves. And somewhere, a voice begins to laugh, a sound that is both joyous and terrifying, as if the laughter itself understands more than you ever will. All Tzeentchian cults follow the same pattern, though none realize it. They are pyramids of ambition. Each rank believes the one above them holds the secret to truth. Each master believes they alone hear the changer's voice clearly. And at the top, there is always one figure, the magister, the prophet, the scribe of the 9th word, who claims to have seen the future and written it down. But that's the twist. Tzeentch writes through them. Every prophecy they record, every revelation they share, is another thread in his design, each leading not to salvation, but to transformation. For when enlightenment comes, it never comes alone. Those who read too far begin to change. Their eyes shimmer like opals. Their words ripple in the air, echoing twice, once from the mouth, once from somewhere else. Their skin grows translucent, veins glowing faintly with the light of the warp. Some begin to levitate mid-sentence. Others laugh uncontrollably, speaking in tongues that make mirrors crack. They call it the gift of insight. The Imperium calls it mutation. Tzeentch calls it art. The cult's greatest weapon isn't war or magic, it's ideas. Tzeentchian corruption spreads not by sword, but by thought. A single data fragment, a phrase encoded in a speech, a mathematical proof that cannot exist, all can act as vectors. To read them is to be rewritten. To understand them is to begin to change. Even the Inquisition fears such heresies. Entire research stations have been purged when a sigil of 9 concentric spirals appeared unbidden on their servers. Whole hive cities have burned because a cult disguised its creed as a philosophy of progress, promising freedom from stagnation, only to deliver madness. And in the ruins, among the ashes, always the same mark, a stylized eye, ringed in blue flame. To the faithful, Tzeentch offers revelation. He tells them they are not blind, that they can see the pattern, that they can change destiny itself. He shows them visions, futures they can taste, memories of events that have yet to happen. They think they're becoming gods. They think they're breaking the chain. But they're only climbing deeper into it. Because every revelation is another leash. Every truth is another lie. And when at last they kneel before the final sigil, the 9th gate, the last circle, they see it. Their own face, reflected in blue fire, reshaped into something smiling, knowing, and utterly inhuman. That's when they realize. They were never learning his secrets. They were becoming them. So, when the voice in your dream says, "Would you like to know the truth?" Remember, truth is just another story Tzeentch tells. And the moment you answer, the book is already open, and it's reading you. When wisdom itself lies, what shape does truth take? They say every word ever spoken still echoes somewhere in the warp. Every idea, every lie, every dream drifting through that endless sea of thought like sparks of living color. And when enough of those thoughts gather, when ambition and curiosity entwine, they take form. They become Tzeentch's children. Unlike the daemons of Khorne, who are born from rage and slaughter, the daemons of Tzeentch are shaped from concepts. A lord of change might be the physical incarnation of a philosopher's paradox. A flamer, the expression of a single spark of innovation or destruction. A screamer, the embodiment of every fleeting idea that dies before it's spoken. These beings are not creatures in the mortal sense. They are intelligences, given shape by madness, living metaphors with talons and wings. They do not march to war like the brass legions of Khorne. They flow. They dance through the sky like fire and glass, shifting color and form with every thought their master dreams. Each one a fragment of Tzeentch's mind, and each one believing it is the whole. At the highest tier stand the Lords of Change, vast avian beings whose feathers shimmer with impossible hues, whose eyes see not just through space, but through outcome. They are Tzeentch's generals, philosophers, and prophets, beings of endless intellect and cruelty, disguised as curiosity. Their words twist reality. Their laughter bends causality. When they speak, galaxies tremble. A Lord of Change does not fight to destroy it, fights to rearrange, to turn the battlefield into a puzzle, to make the enemy doubt their own existence before the killing blow falls. And yet, even among these cosmic manipulators, there are hierarchies. Some whisper of Kairos Fateweaver, the oracle of Tzeentch, a two-headed Lord of Change, cursed with omniscience and madness in equal measure. One head speaks only truth, the other only lies. But no one can ever tell which is which, not even Kairos himself. It was Fateweaver who once dared to question his master. Tzeentch threw him into the well of eternity, a vortex of raw time and infinite futures. He emerged, screaming, with every destiny in existence burned into his mind, except one, the present. Even now, his two heads bicker endlessly, lost between what was and what will be. Then there is the changeling, the trickster daemon, the mask of Tzeentch made manifest. He has worn the faces of saints and tyrants, daemons and primarchs, even gods themselves. None can tell when the changeling is present, for his deception is not illusion, it is reality rewritten. Entire wars have been started by his lies, armies destroyed by believing their own commanders were impostors. There are tales of the changeling impersonating a Chaos Lord so perfectly that even his daemons obeyed until the moment he commanded them to burn their master alive. His true form? None know. Perhaps not even he. Perhaps that's the joke. Two lesser daemons, but perhaps the most dangerous of all, are the blue scribes Patarix and Ziratpa. Tzeentch tasked them to gather every spell in existence, for each one contains a lost fragment of his own power. They soar through the warp upon a burning disk of Tzeentch, scrawling incantations across parchment and air alike. But as with all gifts from the great schemer, there is irony woven deep. Patarix can write every spell but cannot read his own words. Ziratpa can read them but cannot understand. Together, they are complete, yet forever blind. They cast spells at random, scribbling and screaming across the battlefield, each burst of warp energy rewriting reality in ways even they cannot predict. They are what Tzeentch adores most, creation born from confusion. The most numerous of Tzeentch's daemons are the horrors, pink, blue, and brimstone, each a living storm of mutation. A pink horror laughs as it casts fire that sings like a choir of broken glass. Kill it, and it splits in two blue horrors giggling as they continue the carnage. Kill them, and they explode into motes of brimstone, small cackling embers that set the ground alight with warp fire. Each one a lesson. Destruction only multiplies. Every attempt to end chaos only creates more. It is said the laughter of a dying horror sounds like Tzeentch's own amusement. Flamers of Tzeentch are fire, given hunger. They do not burn what they touch, they transform it. Stone becomes flesh. Flesh becomes light. Light becomes laughter. To witness their fire is to see the world rewritten in mockery of reason. Screamers, sleek manta-like beasts, soar through the warp like knives of glass, devouring thought and flesh alike. Their screams are not sound, but psychic wails, echoes of doomed ideas that never became reality. It is said each screamer is the corpse of a forgotten dream. And then there are the burning chariots, pulled by screamers, driven by flamers, trailing fire and madness across the skies. To mortals, they look like comets, omens of disaster. But to those who understand, they are the signatures of Tzeentch himself, signing his name across the sky. For mortals, the ultimate reward of devotion to Tzeentch is ascension, the transformation into a daemon prince of change. They are not gifted immortality, they are rewritten into it. Every ambition, every betrayal, every spark of genius they ever held is etched into their new flesh like runes of molten brass and cerulean light. Magnus the Red, the Crimson King of the Thousand Suns, is the greatest of these ascended. Once a Primarch, now a living conduit of sorcery, his single eye burns with the reflection of his master's gaze. He is both prisoner and prophet, chained by the same power he sought to master. To become a daemon prince of Tzeentch is to finally see the whole pattern and realize that even your enlightenment was planned. When Tzeentch's daemons go to war, it is not an army. It is a storm. The scintillating legions pour from the warp in a riot of color and madness, banners of living flame unfurling across the sky. Each legion is commanded by a lord of change, but even among them, treachery is worship. Every host plots against the next, weaving schemes within battles that have yet to be fought. They do not fight to win, they fight to reshape, to rewrite the field of war into a new pattern of chaos and revelation. When the storm passes, nothing remains the same, not even the ground beneath it. In the end, every daemon of Tzeentch, from the smallest brimstone to the mightiest lord of change, shares one truth. They are lies that became real, dreams that learned how to breathe. And perhaps the greatest lie of all is the one they tell themselves, that they are serving Tzeentch. Because in truth, they are Tzeentch, every one of them, a shard of his infinite thought, burning, laughing, learning, becoming. And when you gaze too long into their eyes, feathered, fiery, or fathomless, you might realize something terrible. They're not looking at you. They're looking through you. Because the great conspirator already knows what you'll think next. And he's smiling. It ends as it began, with a whisper, not of power, but of realization. You see now that every thought, every question, every act of defiance was never yours. They were threads, each one tugged by an unseen hand. Tzeentch doesn't rule through worship or fear. He rules through curiosity, through the hunger to understand. Every revelation births another lie, every truth opens another maze, and at the center of it all, there is no center. Only motion, only change, only him. The architect of fate never ends his design, because an ending is a form of death. He moves eternally, rewriting creation and you along with it. And now you hear it faint, behind your own thoughts. A whisper asking, what happens next? That question is his mark upon your soul. The moment you ask it, you belong to him. So listen closely. Don't look away, because the next secret, the next revelation, is already waiting. Subscribe. You've already started the ritual.